hope you're all doing well, and thank you for coming back to my channel. So today the person I'm going to talk about is actually someone you can look up yourself. He already has a YouTube channel, and even though it's no longer active, but if you go through his older videos and can at least get a sense of what kind of person he was. Now, what makes this so unsettling is that while his videos are still there for anyone to watch, it has now been almost 11 years, and this person has still not been found. So, the person I'm talking about today is Haruchika Miyagi. From a young age, Haruchika, who most people simply called Chika or Haru, was known to be quite talented and sharp-minded. He graduated from Leahy High School in Utah and went on to attend Utah Valley University. Haru was an entrepreneur and a day trader, specifically a global day trader. For those unfamiliar, day trading means buying a stock and selling it within the same day, rather than holding on to it. It's considered one of the riskier forms of trading, but Haru clearly knew what he was doing, as anyone who watches his videos closely can tell. And over time, he became very active on social media and genuinely enjoyed making videos about everyday topics. His channel mostly covered things like how to save on utility bills and solar energy for homes. He also uploaded detailed videos analyzing trading strategies and market trends. So in short, everything in Haru's life seemed to be going well, or, at least that's what it looked like from the outside. And then suddenly, on December 3rd, 2015, Haru drove nearly 500 miles in his own car toward American Forks, Utah. Then about 2 days later, he pulled up to a very isolated private property. The property owner, a woman, came out of her house and asked what he was doing there. He simply asked if he could stay there for the night. Since she didn't know him, she told him he couldn't, but suggested that there was a hotel not too far away where he could easily stay. After hearing this, Haru calmly walked back to his car, but instead of leaving the way he came in, he drove toward the property owner's driveway, which extended further down and ended at a gate. Then he sped up his car, rammed through it, and drove off. And from that point on, he has never been found. Now, before we begin, we first need to look at some background information about him. So Hiroshi Miyagi was born on June 31st, 1981, to Japanese immigrant parents. He was commonly known as Haru, or Hiroshi Miyagi, and that was also the name of his YouTube channel. He grew up in Utah County and had 5 siblings. Haru was involved with quite a few companies, and as I mentioned earlier, he used to explain topics like how to save money and how to approach trading. But what I didn't mention before is that he wasn't just active on YouTube. He was also present on Twitter, now known as X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and essentially most of the popular social media platforms that existed around 2015. And across all of these platforms, he was consistently promoting and sharing advice on the same kinds of topics. Now, he also developed software for trading called Tensai. So in many ways, Haru Miyagi had everything going for him. He had a clear understanding of how to make money, he had financial stability, and he was working with multiple companies. By most measures, he had everything a person would need to live a comfortable and successful life. And yet, despite all of that, fate seemed to have something very different in store for him. Now let me talk a little about the town where all of this took place. The town is Downey, Arizona, which at the time had a population of around 4,000 people. It sits on a mountain in northern Arizona and is an extremely isolated place. With only 4,000 residents spread across a wide area, the houses were far apart from one another. To this day, we don't know what Haru was doing in Downey, Arizona, or where exactly he was headed. Despite regularly posting about his daily life and trading on social media, he never told his close relatives or family about any plans to go there. Now, according to the police, there are mainly 2 routes that lead to that location, and the one the police consider more likely is that he was driving east from Prescott along Highway 169. This is the main road that residents of Downey typically use, so it's reasonable to assume he took the same route. Along this road, he would have passed several homes, ranches, and small shops. At some point along the way, he turned right into one of those ranches. The road he took to get to that ranch was called Medbar Road, which was narrower than the main road and entirely unpaved. Then, about 10 to 15 minutes down that road, sits a ranch called Medbar Ranch, which was primarily a horse ranch. When Haru drove onto the property, the owner came out and asked what he was doing there. He simply told her he wanted to stay for the night. And as I mentioned earlier, she turned him down. After that, instead of leaving the way he came, he drove straight toward a gate at the front of the property. A gate that had originally been built to keep the horses in and was fenced on both sides. The gate wasn't locked, but he rammed through it with his car at speed anyway. The gate took significant damage, though the car itself wasn't badly affected. His behavior made the woman suspicious, so she immediately called the police. And it took them over an hour to reach the ranch, which gives you a pretty good sense of just how isolated this place was. When the police arrived, they took the woman's statement and then followed the direction Haru had driven off in. Then about 2 hours later, they found his car. It wasn't hard to identify, as it was parked on the side of the road and had visible scratches and some damage on the front, though nothing too severe. But what was most surprising was that Haru was nowhere inside it. The police then took the car to the station for further investigation. A search operation was launched about 4 days later. The area was so vast and isolated that despite having multiple search personnel and search dogs, the dogs couldn't pick up even the slightest trace of Haru. Now there's a detail I forgot to mention earlier that I should have brought up sooner. On December 3rd, before Haru left, he made an unusual post on his social media, something very out of character for him, as he had never posted anything like it before. The post read, "The power of giving is important. One must give as much as possible. It is all karma." When he first published that post, people found it a little strange but didn't think too much of it. But once he went missing, that post started to feel very different. What makes this whole case so unsettling is that there are so many possible explanations, yet none of them lead anywhere, and everything about it remains a mystery. That post alone tells us that something was going on with Haru, because if nothing was wrong, why would he write something like that? He had never posted anything like it before. And then there are the bigger questions. Why did he suddenly drive out to Arizona? And more importantly, why did he go to that specific ranch? It's not like he knew the woman who owned it. She was a complete stranger to him. And the fact that he asked to spend the night there is strange in itself. If you're in trouble, sure, you might ask someone for help. But if nothing is wrong, why would you walk up to a stranger's property and ask to stay the night? And it's not like there were no hotels nearby. There were. The woman even suggested one to him. She told him that if he kept driving, he'd find a hotel within roughly 45 minutes to an hour. So if he genuinely needed a place to stay, why didn't he just go there? Why did he drive in the complete opposite direction instead? When the woman gave her statement to the police, and they asked about Haru's body language and behavior, she didn't report anything unusual. From this, we can clearly gather that whatever was going on inside his head, his body language appeared completely normal while he was speaking with her, right up until the moment he got back in his car and rammed through the gate. Based on everything I've talked about so far, there's no obvious reason why Haru should have had any financial problems. And as far as I could find through my research, there's no clear indication of serious mental health issues either. His family did notice some behavioral changes around 2015, but nobody anticipated that things would escalate to this extent. Another thing worth noting is that the area where his car was found was completely desolate. And here's where I want to share my own opinion. In such a vast, empty area, If Haru had simply walked away, he shouldn't have been that difficult to find. So logically, it seems to me that he would have needed another vehicle to leave from there. This is purely my opinion, but it's hard to see how else he could have gotten out. Now, if we consider the possibility of foul play, things get even more complicated. If someone was following him, maybe he was trying to find a safe place to spend the night by approaching that ranch, and that's why he avoided the hotel and was heading into such an isolated area. But then the question becomes, if he was truly in danger, why didn't he just go to the police? This case is very different from others I've covered and significantly more confusing. As for why I don't think walking away was a realistic option, the area where he was is essentially desert terrain, where temperatures drop very quickly at night. And Haru was only wearing a light jacket and a pair of pants, which would not have been nearly enough to protect him from the cold. Another theory that came up through speculation was that some of his friends mentioned he had a strong desire to go to California. But the location where his car was found in Downey was nowhere near the route to California, which only makes things more confusing. Based on that alone, it seems reasonable to say that on that particular day, he wasn't heading to California. He was planning to go somewhere else entirely. It has now been 11 years, from 2015 to 2026, and Haru has still not been found. At the time of his disappearance, he was 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighed around 180 to 185 pounds, and was 34 years old. The Arizona investigators have not closed this case. It remains open to this day. So if any of you have any information that could shed even a little light on what happened, please reach out to the Yavapai Sheriff's Office.
Hi guys, this is Delilah Brooks, and I'm going to share the next case study with you. If you enjoy it, please leave feedback so I can continue making more case studies for future videos. So I'm going to talk about Vernette, who was last seen on November 21st, 1985 with her ex-husband. After that, she was never found. Over 41 years have passed, and this case remains open to this day. Vernette's full name was Vernette Lorraine Wester, and she was born on January 2nd, 1947. And at the time of her disappearance, she had 5 children, the youngest of whom was only 8 years old. From reading various newspaper reports, one thing became very clear. Her marriage was not going well at all. Things had gotten so bad that they were already moving toward a divorce. Since her children were so young, this situation was especially hard on them. At that age, children need their parents' love and presence the most, and when parents are going through something like this, it inevitably takes a toll on the children as well. Vernette had married very young, at just 16 years old. Her ex-husband's name was B.W. I'll be using initials only, not full names. On November 31st, 1985, Vernette and her husband had apparently gone out to buy gifts for Thanksgiving. On their way back, she was last seen in the vicinity of the 1000 block of South Parkside Drive in Tempe, Arizona, near her ex-husband's home. What is particularly striking is that about 5 days later, the car they had been driving, a white 1979 Chevrolet Chevette, was found 3 blocks away from their home. Although her purse, identification, and the car's emergency kit were all missing, police did find her pillow inside the car. She normally kept this pillow on the driver's seat because she was quite short, standing at around 5 feet 2 inches, and needed it behind her to be able to drive comfortably. However, When police found the car, the pillow was not on the driver's seat. It was on the passenger seat. From the very beginning, suspicion fell on Vernette's husband. As I mentioned earlier, their marriage had been in a very bad state, and they had almost reached the final stages of divorce. Through the divorce proceedings, BW had lost nearly everything. The house and custody of the children all went to Vernette, with the exception of their eldest daughter. As for their children, they had blamed their father, BW, from the very beginning for their mother's disappearance, believing that he was responsible for what happened to her. There were multiple reasons to suspect him, which I gathered from various newspaper reports. First, after Vernette disappeared, BW removed almost everything from the house. On top of that, he sold a dark green 1970s Pontiac that Vernette had inherited from her mother, selling it to a nearby garage for just $50. This also tells us something about his financial situation at the time, because no one sells something inherited from their mother for just $50 unless they are in serious financial difficulty. BW also pressured his son to file a petition in court to have his mother declared legally dead. The first attempt was rejected because the son was not yet 18, but as soon as he turned 18, BW tried again. This time it succeeded, and she was legally declared dead in 1992. After all of this, BW continued living at the Parkside residence, the very same area where Vernette was last seen. Despite investigating all of these leads, police were unable to build a solid case. One of the biggest challenges with older cases like this is the lack of CCTV footage, eyewitnesses, and DNA testing technology at the time, all of which made it very difficult to gather solid evidence. And unfortunately, that is exactly what those under suspicion tend to take advantage of. In 2010, the case saw a breakthrough when the Phoenix Police Department began reinvestigating it after new information came to light that had not been available before. It is also worth mentioning that whenever BW was called in for interviews or asked to cooperate with the investigation in any way, he was largely uncooperative. In 2010, police obtained a search warrant and went to BW's home. While there was little reason to expect Vernette's belongings to still be there, investigators hoped they might find something that could be linked to her through DNA testing. They even brought cadaver dogs to search the property. However, by that point, 25 years had already passed, and after that length of time, the chances of finding anything meaningful were significantly reduced, and the dogs were of little help either. Vernette's daughter, however, never gave up. She held on to the hope that one day evidence would surface and her mother would get justice. But to this day, no such evidence has been found. The foul play being the most strongly suspected element of this case from the very beginning, justice has still not been served, and the case remains open to this day. However, if I look at the crime rate in Tempe, Arizona in 1985, one thing becomes quite clear. The crime rate at that time was considerably higher compared to other states. When the car was found 5 days later, her purse and identification were missing from inside it. The reason I specifically mentioned the purse is that it would have contained money. So looking at the case from a different angle, it is possible that foul play was carried out by an unknown person who may have tried to rob her, and when she refused, something terrible happened. However, this is purely my own opinion, and I cannot back it up with any concrete explanation. The reason I raise it at all is simply because of how high the crime rate was at the time. That said, the evidence and motive pointing toward her husband remained substantial. She disappeared right around the time the divorce was being finalized. She had married at 16 and was 38 when she vanished, meaning she had spent nearly 18 years with him. And perhaps things were not always as bad as they became later on. But life does not always follow logic, and in situations like these, fate often plays a very cruel role. This is my first crime video on Unfold Diaries. If you enjoyed it, please do give the video a like, and if you can, share it around as well. It would really help the channel out.